Hello, my name is Zach, and I'm here to introduce you to the Excel file that I've developed for the auditing of the Take a Seat simulation. You can see how the names of the students participating are sorted in numerical numbers right now. That'll come into play later, but this can just simply be substituted with any person's name. It also has their role. Make sure to make a note of having a dash for the role of auditor, and the discrepancy amount is listed here. This is going to be a calculation that you can simply use for reporting to the professor just by clicking, dragging, and copying there. When the students report the numbers, it'll change through the different rounds, but to start off, every student starts off with $100,000 in cash. To begin the process of auditing, you'll simply need to go over to the save file and review some of this information. This is from a student who was in round 3, and you can see how some of their numbers are going to be a little bit different than what you would see on round 1. But the idea here is you would take a look at the expenses to start off in round 1, put in that amount, look at the revenue, put in that amount, look at the inventory, put in that amount, order penalty, if any, and then the ending balance. Now, all of these are going to be reported numbers to you from just this initial cash position, so that's fairly straightforward. What will become a little bit more complicated is that the students will also have potentially multiple expenses or revenues as the simulation goes on. Obviously, the PDs will have to only have one expenses they are sourcing from the raw materials, but they might have 2 or 3 sellers. So to simply get that together, you just need to put in those amounts, 100 plus 200, for example, and just it'll automatically sum it up for you there. The way this works is these amounts in here will automatically be calculated, and then these will be compared to what's been reported in order to see if there's any discrepancy. So we can see, for example, this student has reported that they had spent $20,000, made $20,000, and had no penalties. Over here, if we show, okay, they had $20,000 in expenses, $20,000 in revenue, we should see that they have $100,000 balance and that there's no discrepancy. Great. The next student, this is something you'll see, is it's very easy to just miss a number and forget to put it in. So they might forget that they have any expenses and they're just reporting revenue, and then they'll be reporting, oh yeah, obviously they made $120,000 because they just added it for there. But if you actually look at their documentation, or just simply audit the fact that there's no expense for there, you'll see 20,000, 20,000, which obviously balances out to 100,000. And we can see here that there will be a discrepancy of 20,000. This conditional formatting is set up so that if there's an excess amount, if the student is under-reporting or over-reporting what their ending balance is, it'll come up in red. And if they're under-reporting, it'll come up in green. So, for example, this student nominally reported that they had 60,000 in expenses and 100,000 in revenue. But in reality, if you actually went through and added up all of their sales orders, you would actually show 120,000 instead of 100,000. And so the actual calculated balance is 160,000. So that the student is missing out on $20,000 effectively. Starting in round 2, this starts a slightly new way of calculating things because we have to start accounting for the possibility of having teammates. So far in round 1, round 2, there's no teammate feature, but this could be something that happens in the future. What's going to be important is that there's going to be a new column that is team cash balance, which I'm going to bold here. It's important that these are not calculated sums. You'll actually have to just put them in. So you could either just copy and then you could just paste the values, or you could just manually type it in, whatever you prefer. But this does allow you to account for having teams in the future if needed. The crucial part here is that the initial balance here is actually carried over from the previous round. So you see how there's 80,000 in this column, and that's because it's being carried over automatically from that column. So if there's any issue where your auditing misses something and it's simply an error of your calculation, and that's corrected, you'll just have to manually type in whatever the actual amount is in that previous round in order to have the correct balance moving forward. This will be important because starting in round 3, you're going to have various teammates show up. So for example, let's say 3 and 4 start working together. Well, this is how you note that 3 is now working with 4. We could just simply put a strike through just to kind of remind ourselves that this person is no longer being solo. The next part is that you would then add those sums together. So we'd add the 80,000 plus the correct balance there. And we're just going to strike through that so we can ignore that. And now their actual correct starting sum is 240,000. So then we would go through and calculate all the other amounts as normal. That should be pretty self-explanatory. You'll have towards the end, you'll have several different people combine. My recommendation is that you simply have however many combine, just simply combine them into the first occurrence. So if you have 3, 4, 8, and 9 all combined, for example, just roll it all together into 3 and then just cross out 8 and 9 and just add them all together. Thank you.